Welcome back to the news, everybody, where today things are actually heating up. So, Tim Sweeney, he thought he could play hardball. He did play a little bit of hardball. May have hurt himself in his own playing of the hardball. But what has happened is a little bit of that torch has been picked up by the EU. And the EU are, in fact, a bit more powerful than Tim Sweeney, even though he does own Fortnite. Quite an interesting one, of course, the Epic versus Apple story. I mean, my God, what year is this? 2021, all the way back there again. But we do actually have a fairly material update to this story that we didn't exactly expect, that also doesn't exactly look like what some of its initial headlines looked like. So we thought there'd be a bunch of value in telling you what's going on, breaking it down.
Yeah, it also is a little bit of like a precedent shift in terms of its, because obviously look at Microsoft and Activision Blizzard and that merger being attacked by the FTC and everyone going, hang on. And that being like I guess a side effect of everyone going, what exactly was happening in Meta? What did Facebook do? Why did we let them get away with everything? And it feels like there's like a crackdown across all of kind of tech coming. And this seems to be like one part of the movement of just, hang on, how much money are these people allowed to make hand over fist because they have an oversized amount of control over markets? Maybe we should address that and bring some consumer freedom and security and safety into the world, maybe.
Yeah, I'll be fascinated to see how this happens because, well, basically, Bloomberg are reporting that Apple may be making some very unprecedented moves in their next major software update. And that essentially is installing and using third-party apps, sideloading software directly, and choosing what app stores you wish to install on their device, including third-party ones. Of course, we do have an audience all across the world. The iPhone is pretty big all across the world. Sure is. It is especially big in the United States, and that does mean a large number of people watching today's show are actually doing so on their iPhones. Now, the idea then is that you may be able to pull up something in your iPhone that will not be the Apple App Store. You may think, why is this good for me? Well, there are a whole bunch of reasons. The revenue split is one of them, but there are other reasons, like you face the revenue split in increased costs that do get passed down to you. Sometimes things are actually more expensive on iOS. If you buy them through, through the actual app, there'll be services that do let you purchase it through the App Store because they don't want to lose those users. But for a lot of them, they will increase the price. That's one benefit. You may get some better prices, but also there are sometimes apps that Apple will not allow on their store. Be that for whatever reason.
Yes.
And it will be very interesting to see then what can go on. I think this is also something that to me is important as time goes on because we're, I think, entering a resurgence of handheld gaming. I'm not going to say mobile gaming, I'm going to say handheld gaming. What I'll say there is using a Razer Kishi or a Backbone on an iPhone does lead to a gaming experience that for many games is vastly superior to a Nintendo Switch, and in many cases even superior to a Steam Deck because the software experience is really slick and it works really well. And that's the pretty damn crazy thing, especially because Apple Silicon, you do have to hand it to them. The level of power and efficiency on those chips is absolutely off the charts. And it's just the sort of thing where imagine if a Switch was anything nearly as powerful as even an iPhone from 2 years ago.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I can't remember which exact one it is, but it's one of the iPad Air. And I remember that running Genshin 60 FPS when that game launched. And I was like, sorry, what? What resolution is this running at 60 frames per second? And then I play something that's the third-party game on a Switch and go, what is happening here? Why is this games console a phone from 2014?
Yeah.
And a phone or an iPad from 2019, 2020 can absolutely demolish it? Hang on a second. The possibility of that actually being a little bit more open for a variety of reasons and not having to pass down the costs as well is yes, it's actually really good.
For me, the idea that somebody could maybe bring a battery bank with them. And now, to be very clear, the Pale Beyond is there are currently no plans for a phone or a mobile release for our game. It is something that I would like to do in the future if possible and if it made sense. But for me, the idea that somebody could boot up our game and pop some headphones in, and let's just say they do that in a flight, and their flight that's 10 hours long just gets to be some really nice immersive story and they're really happy. That sounds really awesome to me. In the same way that doing so on a Nintendo Switch is something people would understand and would come with a hell of a lot fewer, connotations. And I think that there is just a really nice potential here if we can crack some of these things open. However, there could be very interesting economical implications that could very much flip the board on how so much business is done. As an example, Microsoft, they will be selling any form of Xbox to you at a loss. because they own the platform and they know that they will make their profit on game sales over time. That means that Microsoft basically is subsidizing the cost of getting you that console. I know you have to pay for it, but they're still losing money on it. Now, you can see a lot of ways where that does offer value to a consumer, and it gives Microsoft an incentive to offer a good deal to consumers and, all that kind of thing. And if that is flipped up, then Microsoft would say, okay, so if you could just open the Epic Game Store on an Xbox One, or, well, that would be odd, on an Xbox Series X, and you could just buy a bunch of games, we'd lose a whole bunch of revenue. And then why did we take a massive hit in our Xboxes? And a whole knock-on effect. But I think first, though, we got to explain to everybody what's actually going on. So the European Union is implementing a directive called the Digital Markets Act. Companies have until 2024 to comply. And effectively, it's designed to water down the influence that a significant platform holder will have on a tech space. Basically, their goal or their understanding is like, look, if there's a big gatekeeper, Apple, Meta, Google, and they just own the whole friggin' platform, then they can really abuse their advantage. It's the sort of thing where in instances where you have like the sort of the network effect, and that's like, that's your path to scale. The more people join your platform, the more useful your platform is, the more value it holds, then it is a winner takes all game. And if you were to say, okay, fine, we'll just break up Facebook, like that probably wouldn't really work. And even if that did happen, look what happened with Standard Oil when it got broken up. Who was able to just kind of achieve a whole bunch of consolidation via different means? The people who made all their money from Standard Oil. So instead, what they're, I think, doing is they're almost saying, right, Facebook is like a sector. This platform is a sector, and we need to crack the sector open rather than say, hey, because they're going to be like, oh man, imagine if MySpace was competitive. Well, that's not the way the world works.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. So the loose analogy here is basically it's a more widespread, preemptive, and universal version of Microsoft being told that they can't supply Internet Explorer as the default web browser on Windows. They had to give users options. Basically, a long time ago, Microsoft would only ship Internet Explorer. They had absolutely gargantuan market share. And do you remember? Probably you're around the same age as me.
Yep.
Everyone in school using Internet Explorer, the one that didn't even have tabs. And then we got to be the very cool people who are like, hey, look, Chrome.
Yeah, look.
And we were there for that getting cracked open and changed.
What do you mean Chrome? You mean Firefox?
Firefox, yeah, true.
It was Firefox. Don't pretend you're not a nerd. But yeah, that's the thing where I think this is an interesting kind of paradigm shift where they're going for the preemptive approach. Whereas like all of this stuff has happened, and now it's to some degree a lot of the people who actually can, actually have a hand to play against tech giants are capable of going, okay, well, what sort of things should we be looking out for? Well, how are they likely to approach and create the monopoly? How are they going to create a bunch of market share? How are they going to basically find the way to own everyone and then, I guess, pull the rug out from everyone and go, oh, now you're on our platform. Now you have to deal with our shit. Haha, we got you. You're all in the wrap bit. So I think that's a case of they now actually know, okay, let's start actually stopping this before it gets bad.
Yeah.
Which we have not historically as a people almost ever done before. Whereas just, okay, we are just, in terms of how legislation goes, we are basically just a massive race of people who are just going monkey's paw all day long. Just, okay, we'll solve this problem. Nothing wrong can happen to this whatsoever. And then it does. And there's a case of maybe people being finally smart enough to actually make changes ahead of time. Ideally.
Yeah, hopefully. It's the one thing that we've been bad at, which is we always react, and we react late, which is why we've got laws like, the DMCA that's just out of date, not fit for purpose. Mm-hmm. So the idea that lawmakers may actually be trying to think about how we don't end up making the torment nexus, that's decently welcome, because I think we all agree that monopolies are quite bad. Because when the monopoly gets crazily out of control, then all of the things that I suppose you could say are, capitalism driving innovation and stuff, those then get to, they halt, they slow down. It turns into corporatism to defend one's monopoly. And then obviously that's when the people start to lose out more and more and more and more. And that's a situation that many people feel. So it's quite interesting. With the DMA, a smartphone user would still be able to enjoy safe and secure services of the default app store on their smartphones. On top of that, if they choose, the DMA would allow a smartphone user to opt for other safe app stores. So I wonder what that means. Many people remember jailbreaking their iPhone back when they were in school, putting Cydia on it and being like, hey, look look at all these weird apps I have. Woo! And that could be quite neat, especially when Apple are really dragging their feet in features. If companies repeatedly violate this, they could be fined 20% of their annual global revenue, not profit.
That's a lot.
Revenue. So that would just be like Apple having an 80 billion fine. So, damn.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it's the way they say it is, you'll have this safety and security of the default App Store. Because you all know the power of defaults. A lot of people won't change from the default. So this isn't like unnecessarily a brick of you have to ship with the App Store and 5 competitive app stores or we're going to kill you and take your money.
Yeah, like Edge is still on. Edge still comes in Windows 11. It's just they have to offer other ones.
Yeah, so that's a case where this won't be like, oh, this is completely destroying Apple and everything they're doing. It's more for power users to go, okay, well, you're not arbitrarily limited anymore. For power users and people who want to like have a better experience or a different experience, you can do that, which I think is like the smart way of not it being too punitive, because you don't want to kick Apple in the head because Apple will do something to fight back. And obviously, so well, how they're going to fight back? There's a lot of things they can do all over the place to fight back. So I think it is very like, okay, we have to compromise a little bit, work with you slightly just to see how this goes.
Yeah. So what does that actually mean for games? Well, there's a couple of things. It does mean that retroactively, Tim Sweeney's big gamble is just goddamn hilarious, where he didn't really achieve that much and he lost a hell of a lot of money, and the EU's kind of came in and sort of done the job anyway.
Well, yeah, you have to wonder, did the EU
sparked conversation?
Yep.
Yeah, sparked a conversation, but hey, there's still no Fortnite. But maybe one day, Tim Sweeney will get to have the great emotional catharsis of hitting go on the Epic Game Store for iOS, and he will think, ha! Seethe, Tim Apple, seethe. Maybe that is what the Sweden will do. So there you go, Epic Game Store on Apple. Probably something that you could see would happen. Now, I don't know, maybe if Epic have violated the developers agreement, for Apple, then maybe there's not a way that they can do this. But generically speaking, a lot more options here. Now, Microsoft also did make some moves to support Epic during that court case, which was also quite interesting. They dropped the Microsoft App Store and PC to 12% just ahead of those legal proceedings beginning, and that all led to the whole, remember the Coalition for App Fairness and all of that, which was titled under Adapting Ahead of Regulation. That's ahead of regulation. They knew this shit was coming. That's
where I'm kind of like excited for this across all of tech, because it's just them getting ahead of problems, going, listen, we will, we're active. And it's the idea of like, if there's no like arbiter, if there's no like judgmental force, people do everything they possibly can and get out of it. But if there is someone standing going, I have a very big hammer and I am very happy to swing this right into your face, then places might go, hang on, we might have to at least pretend to be ethical. We might have to pretend to care about our users.
Yeah.
We might have to, it's the whole thing. I can't remember where it was. There's an article recently saying, putting the whole thing forward of, basically as something we've talked about, the games industry has proven that it does need regulation to be fair and to be free in the future. And that's the idea of this is coming for tech in the sense already of just, oh no, you have been given a free area to roam and you've abused that. It's time for the parent to step in and make sure what's happening is right. And then games will, obviously if Microsoft through Xbox, Apple, Epic, you can see how this immediately is one step away from video games need this too.
In fairness, when you look at the 10 principles, I won't go through them here, but they're actually all good. Even things like we will not block an app from a Windows-based, on Windows from whatever the developer's choice of payment system is.
Yeah.
That's really big, because often they say, hey, you've got to use our payment system, and this is our fee structure. You have no choice. Developers are like, well, what if I just want to do a custom thing, or use Stripe or Shopify? I don't fucking know. So that's all basically actually good stuff to hear from Microsoft. Now, obviously on PC, Microsoft is in a severe place of weakness, so anything that they could do to make their App Store look good would absolutely make sense. And it's not given the all the recent news, they're going to be perfectly happy with the government. All the time. But certainly a part of this, though, that Microsoft will be very happy about is that they're acquiring Activision Blizzard King. The K is a little bit more important here. Though that said, the Diablo Immortal money, if 30% of that didn't have to go to Tim Apple, and instead maybe only 12%, or maybe, you could just download the the Battle.net mobile. What could Battle.net mobile do? It could bring together a whole bunch of Blizzard-y things, you chat in your Blizzard communities, do all of that stuff. And of course, maybe they offer you, 10% right? If they offer you 10% off all prices if you use their app store, then what's the Giga Whale going to do? Now, they could offer you 10% off, but maybe they save 25%, right? The Giga Whale, who's going to be dropping stupid money, is going to make their purchase on the other store.
Yes, same.
That's
like,
better for them.
Yeah, you immediately think of that in like Hearthstone terms. You immediately think of that of like Warcraft, Arclight Rumble coming up, and go, oh well, like is someone at Blizzard seeing this news, like Micah Barr, and going, hey, Battle.net mobile team, your authenticator's pretty good. Do you want to spin that out into like a whole platform? Because, you can probably port Battle.net to mobile handy enough. Do you want to have the plans drawn up for this? And like, as soon as this like goes through and stuff, we just nail it, just go. Because we can make a lot more money if we don't have to go through the Apple system.
And on that, if you actually want to hear some of their plans, this is what they said, some filings with the CMA around the acquisition. It'll improve Microsoft's ability to create a next-generation game store that operates across a range of devices, including mobile, as a result of the addition of Activision Blizzard's content, because, of course, of the King. Building on their existing community of gamers, Xbox will seek to scale the Xbox store to mobile, attracting gamers to a new Xbox mobile platform. You then obviously think about them trying to bring Game Pass to mobile, and I can tell you, this may be surprising to you. It was surprising to me, but I snapped Backbone onto my iPhone. I spun up the weird little thing where you like add it to your home screen. It's not an app. It's just like a web thingy. Yeah. But I'm sitting there, and you saw it, playing Halo Infinite with lag that is perceptible to me because I use high refresh displays on every device that I use, which I suppose is very lucky. It's a bit like, I remember you got a high refresh display recently, and
sure did.
You basically sent me a message saying, oh no, I'm screwed, I can't unsee this. I wish I could go back. So even from my, I guess, enthusiast perspective, that was an absolutely not just playable, but a good Halo Infinite experience. Crazy. And they could deliver that to me on my phone, but they had to go through a bunch of hoops. They can all do this in the proper official way. You can obviously see the benefits, for them and anybody else. PlayStation Now, remember the way you used to have the PlayStation game streaming? Well, imagine what the PlayStation app could do if more things were allowed, or if they had their own separate app store or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, basically the fact...
Sony, of course, do actually have quite a lot of, mobile free-to-play stuff. Gotcha and stuff.
Yeah, it's like the fact that they no longer lose 30% on it would mean that they're actually willing to put the effort in to make it more of an actual part. And you can imagine how Xbox would do it. It's like, hey, you finished playing this game, or you're going somewhere, scan this QR code and it'll automatically download the Xbox store and log you in. And you can do it all in one swift movement because we have like that web stuff actually working. It's not going to be like the past where it's go download this like weird launcher and try to get it to work and go to the specific custom place. It'll just be, hey, scan the QR code and go have your fun time. Right, that's something that's, if they can do it properly, will actually be a good user experience. Will actually probably save money along the line because so much of it's not being like scooped up by someone else. Right, that's actually good overall, which is weird. Talking about like the advent of like, as you're saying, handheld gaming as was the mobile gaming more so. Like, yeah, go for it. The honestly, the more console stuff, the more console adjacent stuff that's there. Obviously, I think like streaming maybe won't be perfect for everyone, especially a lot of you watching will probably go, I don't want anything to do with that. But for all of the money that'll bring in from other people, and as well as it'll mean that you can play video games on your phone that aren't just gacha nightmare hellscapes. You're like, oh, hang on, this has actually been improved as a platform.
Yeah, because like, mobile gaming can be awesome. Like, just download Dead Cells, put one of those snap-on controllers, and there you go. You are playing real Dead Cells, and it's just as brilliant. In the same way that maybe you would somehow play Pokemon in your car without getting car sick as a kid when you were bored as fuck.
Oh, did you get car sick playing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sometimes.
The amount of times I remember sitting in the backseat of the car and just like being able to take a couple steps every time we went past a street light. Because this is before the GBA and there's no backlight.
Oh,
God.
Wow. Oh, those are the days.
Honestly, the prospect, I mean, obviously, now you'd get your Pokemon game and emulator, whatever else. I'm sure kids aren't playing Pokemon Red and Blue in the backseat of the car. But the fact that they could now is like, it's pretty crazy.
Android people are obviously laughing right now.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. That's one of the, I mean, I know there's ways to do stuff on iPhones, but like the fact you just go do it easier now.
Yeah.
With no problem.
Well, on that, so we got to talk about what's next then. Look, this is something that's being imposed on Apple, so they're going to do it by the letter of the law, not necessarily by the spirit of the law. So you can expect additional friction there. And all of that stuff, right? You can't expect all of that. Also, could we have a bit of a thing of tables being turned where the EU users actually have the better iPhone? Imagine.
Oh, yeah.
EU users get to have the more Android-like iOS experience and USB-C ports, whereas all the Americans have got to seize with Lightning and no third-party app stores. Quite funny, right? The obvious, if you're going to come in from here, like, let's just say, Matt, imagine we are some sort of, like, vaguely economically right-wing think tank.
Yep.
Okay, so boom, put the mask on. What you could say then is that this absolutely destroys the incentive to build brilliant hardware based on the scaled platform business model. And that is the one thing that's quite interesting to this, where it's different for Apple than it would be for Meta. Now, a little bit different because obviously Meta's a bit more in the hardware game now, but hey, it's just Facebook, right? You just deploy the thing digitally. But the whole thing with, say, an Xbox Series X, sell at a loss so they can make money later. If you can then download the Epic Games Store on that and Microsoft somehow loses just all of that revenue, then yeah, undoubtedly the core business model of Xbox will have to be updated. And then users will just have to think, right, how is this going to be updated? Will it be better for me? Will games be more expensive? Will the consoles be more expensive? Or will they, in fact, have to use their position as a very large company to give me an even better deal in their store so that I use their store instead of Epic's one? It's hard to say, but I think that's the other side of things, so we're doing this in a reasonably balanced way. Though undoubtedly for many people, it's just the idea of, I get more options. Cool, I like that.
Yeah, that's where I think it comes down to the fact it's the default. Most people still use the default. Most people give the money. This will be a small economic hit, but it'll be a small economic hit that matters to you, the power user. Because I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're interested enough to be a power user of various forms of tech. And that's just, hey, there's more options. It's like, imagine a world where you couldn't sideload a load of stuff onto your, like, Meta Quest.
Oh, God.
Oculus Quest, that'd be terrible. But
That'd be
now,
terrible.
but you could always do that, and then like that's part of like that's the whole like tide is shifting in that direction of, if you don't let your users do stuff with hardware, obviously there's the like right to repair and right to replace stuff like that as well. That's kind of like being pushed out in some directions, but it's all like this whole like the opening up of freedom, because legislators are terrified of massive tech monopolies and massive tech like abusing the power, and rightfully so. They should have been worried 20 years ago, but no one had the foresight to go, the internet, this is a great idea. This won't go wrong at all anyway. So I think we're probably moving into a place where things will be a lot happier. And especially, like, I'm just happy about crackdowns in general, because I think one of the recent things we had a meltdown internally about was the DualSense Edge. But like, here's your no battery life. Go fuck yourself, basically.
Yeah, the way that your PlayStation 5 controller basically has half the battery life after a year.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, but like the level of battery life degradation in those controllers is, to me, it is almost akin to joystick drift.
Yeah.
Because like, how bad are those batteries?
Especially
Like
at the price, like.
yeah. And those are expensive ass controllers.
And the controllers are fantastic. Some of the best controllers ever made. But the battery life doesn't exist. You're like, sweet. Oh, well, so it degrades like crazy. Okay. Lawsuit. Let's go. And because of this whole push against tech, there'll be a lot more likelihood of the lawsuit happening, going, actually, that's a good point. Sony, stop fiddling your customers. Oh, okay, we get it, fair. Just like a whole wave. The more of that happening, the better. Because I think we're all at that point where I think we all just hate.
Oh, we're tired of this shit.
We all just hate companies. It's like, could you stop finding ways to nickel and dime us, please? Thank you very much. Have a good one. And now you actually have, like, instead of, I guess in a weird way of putting it, it's like, if they're Goliath and the consumer is David, the EU court seems to be just the rock, and like, down, got you. Yeah, fall over and we can, get some of our money back maybe, or some good experiences back. Thank you.
Yeah. So at least in our little sector of the world, interesting stuff, and in a version of the world where I want USB-C on absolutely everything, also pretty damn good. Let's not have a broader discussion about that. We'll all get dementia. Oh, cable standards. Okay, that's it for today's story. I think one that in the next few years is going to be pretty damn major for us power users. I hope you found this interesting. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video. We'll see you next time.
Power users, hell yeah!